bolstered by recent agreements with nations like North Korea. Now let's discuss NATO as a piece of this. So Putin's rhetoric isn't happening in a vacuum. There are specific provocations by NATO that will lead us to war. Nigel Farage this week let the cat out of the bag. The West brought war to Ukraine. It's NATO's fault that Putin invaded Ukraine. And he said this back in 2014 on the floor of Parliament.
Just to make that worse, of course, some NATO members said they too would like the Ukraine to join NATO. We directly encouraged the uprising in the Ukraine that led to the toppling of the president, Yanukovych, and that led, of course, in turn to Vladimir Putin reacting. And the moral of the story is if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he reacts.
So that was 2014 after the coup in Ukraine, and he's warning us again that Putin doesn't bluff. Keep poking the bear, and we are going to be facing World War III.
I stood up in the European Parliament in 2014 and I said, and I quote, "There will be a war in Ukraine." Why did I say that? It was obvious to me that the ever eastward expansion of NATO and the European Union was giving this man a reason to his Russian people to say they're coming for us again and to go to war.
And during his talks, Putin pointed to NATO's activities as threats not only in Europe, but now even in the Asia-Pacific region. He said this while he was in North Korea, and he said this while he was in Vietnam. Antiwar.com reports that he accused NATO of threatening security in Asia for Russia and other nations, making a deeply interconnected argument that any NATO action globally is a potential threat to Russian security anywhere. So this, guys, is a huge departure. And now NATO is not ignoring Putin's message.
Putin must not win. That would show that aggression works and force is rewarded. It will be dangerous for our own security and for the whole world. So we must sustain and step up our support for Ukraine.
So now NATO is responding to Putin's response, to their response. You see how this goes, this escalation? So when Putin uses the word existential, an existential threat, he means a threat to the very existence of something. In this case, a threat to the existence of Russia. The threat to Russia's existence is NATO, walking right up to their doorstep. Now, a few weeks ago, NATO posted a tweet saying, "We never made a deal with Russia. We never told them that we wouldn't expand. We never put that in writing. We're a defensive organization that is totally peaceful, and we have every right to expand." Well, that, of course, was an absolute lie, and now we have confirmation that it's a lie. Newly unearthed documents from the year 1990 from then U.S. Secretary of State James Baker put it in writing, sending a letter to Gorbachev in Russia saying, quote, "NATO won't expand even 1 inch to the east, and you have our assurances of that." Boom! In writing. So NATO lied to all of us. Here you have the de facto head of NATO saying he won't expand 1 inch. You don't have to worry about it. And just look at that expansion to Russia's doorstep. This is a crazy time lapse showing just how far and how fast NATO has marched. Not only has NATO expanded, but they've quite literally surrounded Russia. This is not going to end well. Now we need to look at the North Korean piece of this, and it's often overlooked how deep these alliances are. Putin's recent pact with Kim Jong-un ramps up the stakes even further. And this isn't, guys, just some posturing here. This agreement strengthens military ties, nuclear energy ties, sending uranium to North Korea, and could even see advanced weapon systems in Pyongyang, a direct counterbalance to the United States' presence in South Korea.